Included women and children and are being housed about 400 miles away from the U.S.-Mexico border. Pete?
Thanks, Ainsley. Well, we love hearing from our viewers here on Fox and Friends, and this next story is truly heartwarming. Joe Field has spent his entire life looking for his biological father. And 3 weeks ago, there was a break in the case, and Joe reached out to me on Facebook telling me his story, and he wrote this in part. He said, "It is a story of a son who went 60 years not knowing who his father was. My birth certificate said father unknown. The son was never adopted. This son has long posted on Facebook how he longs to know his father, particularly since he has children of his own. Well, thanks to a DNA kit, this son, me, was able to trace who my father was." So this past weekend, Joe met his father, an 87-year-old Air Force veteran, for the first time. We sent a camera crew to capture that moment.
Careful.
Joe. Hey, Dad.
Well, one can only imagine the emotion of that moment. Joining me now, Joe Field and his biological father, Joe Adams. Joe, both of you, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Joe, I'm going to go by first and last name here to keep it clear. So, Joe Field, you reached out to me on Facebook with this story. You had identified the man you know to be your father, and you were wanting to meet him. You wanted to reach out to him. You were uncertain about what kind of response you would get. Walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah, well, having that DNA kit arrive, I got the results by email, and I jumped into it right away, and took maybe about 4 hours, and I was able to trace who my dad was through a link through the Ancestry site that said that there was an extremely high confidence level that I was related to this person named Mark Garlock. Well, I didn't know who he was, but I soon found out afterwards, actually, he's the son of my newfound sister, Patsy, from Michigan. And he's in Afghanistan now, Purple Heart, by the way, that he has. Well, anyway, with this, I was able to trace, and he had a family tree, and it was very limited, but at the very top of Mark Garlock's family tree, there was a Joe Adams Sr. And it so happens my birth certificate name is Joe Adams, plural. And so when I saw that, I knew I had a break in who my father was. And I coupled that with the fact that my mother had always told me that my father was in the Air Force and he was a fireman. So when I had that information, I had to search who Joe Adams Sr.'s son was presumably Joe Adams Jr., and I did some research and found out who his wife was. She had died in 2004.
And then you took to Facebook, and you found him on Facebook, learned more information, and you reached out to him.
Yeah, I did on Facebook. I sent him I messaged him through Messenger. No response. I waited about 5 days. Then I sent him a friend request. Waited a day on that. Didn't hear anything. And then I called him, and I have to tell you, that was nerve-wracking. I just called him and I just said, "Joe?" He said, "Yes." I said, "You don't know me, but you might know somebody that I know." I said, "It's going to take you back a few years." And so then I just explained how him and my mom met way back when I was born. And when I was done, after about 3 or 4 minutes, he was a little quiet, but matter of fact, and he said, "It is true." And at that moment, it changed everything.
Joe Adams Sr., what was that moment like for you to hear from your son for the first time?
Well, I was surprised at the call, and in the beginning, I thought it could be a scam. But after he spoke for a moment, and I realized that it was not a scam. He mentioned his mother's name, and that hit me like a brick wall, you know. I knew then it wasn't a scam.
Wow.
That it was legitimate. He was legitimate, and
Joe Field,
so it brought back the memories, you know.
Of course. Joe Field, you then, this is such a family story because you then reached out to him on Facebook. The next day you didn't know what would happen. What happened on Facebook the next 2 days?
I tell you, that was the most remarkable thing I think I've experienced in my lifetime, because when we ended that call, I spoke to my dad for 40 minutes. And at the end, I said, I'll respect your privacy. If this is, I don't know what your family dynamics are, but if you want to just keep it confidential, at least I know who you are. Said, I did send you a friend request, so if you want to accept it, you can know more about me. That was about 6 o'clock in the evening. And then by the next morning at 10 o'clock, my dad accepted my friend request, and I about jumped out of my seat. And then within the next couple hours, something I had never anticipated happened. And that was, his kids, all 7 of them, started sending me friend requests, and I started hitting them, yes, 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 and then it was populating my entire Facebook page, and pretty soon all my Facebook friends and my new family were interacting with them. And here's the thing that impresses me about this family. They were saying, welcome to the family, brother, and there's plenty of love to go around in this family.